Okay, we're going to have Commissioner Mask open our meeting with a prayer, and Commissioner Nisley lead us with pledge of allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for another day you've given us, Lord. We thank you for your mercy and your grace again today. We thank you for these great United States that we get to live in, Lord. We thank you for the opportunity to govern ourselves. And Lord, we thank you for each and every one that lives here in Lapeer County. I pray that you bless all the citizens of the county. Lord, I pray that you would bless this meeting today. I pray that you give us wisdom above our own. Give us discernment. Lord, help us to remember that we serve the constituents of this county. Help us also to remember, Lord, that we ultimately give an account to you for how we serve these people, the people of this county. Bless today and bless this meeting. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming this morning. Before we proceed, we need to approve the agenda unless there's any corrections.
I'll move the agenda be approved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay, consideration of draft minutes from the January 5th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those?
I make the motion to approve those.
Second. Nicely.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, we've got the overnight travel requests and grant applications being passed around here. If anybody has any questions on those, please let someone know.
Mr. Chairman, so I'll make sure it's passed around. In the past, we didn't get it at this end of the table. So
Okay,
they get passed down. Appreciate it.
okay, thank you. Okay, department head updates. Is there any department heads that would like to speak to us this morning and comment?
Lieutenant Beatty from the jail administrator from the jail. The sheriff couldn't be here today, so he asked me to come. The one thing he wanted me to touch on is every year at the jail, they have to have an inspection by the Michigan Department of Corrections. So the state comes out and does an inspection of the jail. And I know most of you have been out to the jail. I know some, I gave a tour or two. But so when they come out, they look at everything, our policies, they do a walkthrough, they look at our medical, our kitchen. They're pretty intensive. They're usually there about 5-6 hours. But I just wanted you guys to know that we were in full compliance with that. So we got a 100% rating, or I don't know what their score is, but it was a perfect rating. So it just takes a lot of work to do that. And it's just really not nothing to do with me. I just want to let deputies know that it's really all them that did all that work. I just kind of oversee it. But anyways, we got another perfect rating. So I just want to let you guys know that.
All right, any comments?
Thank you. I haven't got a tour. I'd like to do one.
You have it. You can, if you want, let me know.
I will.
All right.
Thank you. Any other elected officials or department heads like to comment today?
I'll step up. Morning, Commissioners. Morning, Chairman. Just a very brief overview for 2022 as far as our numbers go. And the following numbers are based on a 249-day working day calendar year, so excluding holidays and weekends. So my officers sat down with just over 1,400 veterans, average of 6 vets a day, and their average appointment time is about, and it could be anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours to 3 to 4 hours, depending on what the circumstances, what's coming in, what they're coming in for. So it varies. There's not a set time. We give them that time just so they have that dedicated time with the service officer. I want them to be as 100% complete when they leave the door as possible. Doesn't always happen, but to try to get to that 100% is our goal. So, The office fielded over 5,329 phone calls, which is an average of about 22 phone calls a day. We had 517 veteran walk-ins, which is about an average of 3 walk-ins a day. Our volunteer drivers program, we have 14 volunteer drivers that take veterans to their appointments in Ann Arbor, Saginaw, Detroit, and Seabox, and Flint, Yale, and Pontiac. They drove over 477 vets to their medical appointments, which is an average of 2 vets per day. They logged in over 51,000 miles and 425 trips, which is an average of 206 miles a day that we drive. And volunteer drivers hours totaled over 2,000 volunteer hours. I haven't equivocated that to any kind of dollar amount yet, so I'm still working on that, but that's money that's not being paid to them to help service our veterans. So, and then my last one, which is always the coup de grace, is we had 218 new vets that have never been in office come around this last year, which is average of 18 vets per month, or about 4.5 vets new every week. That's it in a nutshell.
Great. Commissioner Hagelman?
I want to brag on Pete for a second. I know he doesn't like it, but I'm going to. Tuesday, Pete spoke to the Rotary Club. And what this man does for our community is truly second to none. The definition of no veteran left behind is Pete. And I left the meeting wanting to run through a brick wall. So if you ever want to talk to a football team, let me know. And thank you for what you do for our
That's what you
community.
guys are paying me to do. So it's my way of giving back. It's the least I can do for them. You know, but thank you, and let's see what we can do for you. There's more out there. There's more out there. Like I said, my goal when I took this position in 2019 was 1,000. And I think we're just at or just surpassed 700 in just over 3.5 years. So.
Great. Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much, appreciate it. Any other department heads?
Mr. Chairman, gentlemen, good morning. Just want to take a quick moment to introduce my new deputy director that we recently promoted, Candy Anderson. She's been with us since the beginning when they opened the 911 center in 1997. She started as a dispatcher back then. She worked her way up through the ranks, becoming a supervisor, a training officer, among other things, and now a deputy director. So very pleased and proud to have her stay with us and be a part of our team here. She is truly remarkable and brings a lot of experience and knowledge and staying with us because she had the opportunity to retire and she chose to take a promotion instead. So I'm very happy about that. So this is Candy.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. Any other department heads or elected officials? Okay, that brings us to our first public time. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment today?
Good morning, Carol Wynn, Marathon Township. First of all, I'd like to thank Jackie for her help this week. I had some questions that I emailed to her, and she was more than helpful and pointed me in the right direction regarding budget and everything, so I'm very thankful. That's going to be fun to learn more about the budget. Last week, I had told you about the meeting at the city regarding a special land use, and I'm more than happy to tell you that they did not approve the special land use. There were many reasons for them to go against that, and I'd especially like to publicly thank Attorney Denny. I don't know him, but he had some wise words and a lot of knowledge that he brought to that meeting. It was a packed room. There were people out in the hallway. So I just want to thank him. I guess as a rebuttal last week to a discussion regarding special land uses, I think that when planning commissions are approving or denying a special land use, I really wish they would look further into the future as to what that special land use is going to do in effect. And a special land use should be, the decision to approve or deny should include the master plan as well as the zoning ordinances. And I think so many times that master plan, hours and hours and weeks are put into those and they ignore them. I think they need to look at those in a clearer way. So anyway, I'm very happy that they denied that. I'm sure there will be more requests in the future. But the one sign that someone handed out, which was very nice, was no porn stores, pornography hurts families, protect our community. And I think it was just very beneficial for everyone there. I think in the future, right now, we were on a prayer call last night, and there are organizations that are absolutely going to fight this pornography that is in these schools. We're learning. And it's not going to be just going to a school board meeting and saying, I'm against this. They're taking that next step. And I'm very happy to see so many people that are fighting for our children. Silence is violence. I guess I'm the most unviolent person there is. And I think that that's just something that we need to remember. And I don't know if you guys heard, but in central Illinois, I've been following someone who ran for governor who unfortunately was not elected, but there was a fentanyl problem, and it has affected inmates and the guards that work there. Many people went to the hospital. Fentanyl is a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public would like to comment today?
Alan Pierce, Hathaway Township. About 2 weeks ago now, my brother passed away. Had dementia. He'd fallen, injured his hip. That was a contributing factor to his death. Once he passed, it took 6 days to get his death certificate back. So we've had a bunch of questions about people not being able to keep up with death certificates, and they weren't coming in a timely fashion, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just telling you a recent case that I experienced. And I was very pleased because I was expecting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 20, 30 weeks from the existing procedures that the county goes through. So I was very happy. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that system is working just fine right now. I don't know how many other people come and tell you all how the system is working in that respect, but that's a good, clear update when it takes from Friday to Thursday to get an actual death certificate. Thank you.
Thank you for the information. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to comment this morning? Okay, we're going to close the first public time, and we have a representative, president, and CEO from the Valley Area Agency on Aging. Hopefully I can pronounce this right. Yashika Aubert?
Yashika.
Yashika Aubert.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming this morning. If you'd like to come up to the podium.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. May I approach the chair?
Yes.
Have a few pieces of information for our new CD commissioner. And there's some documents in there that you will need to sign, and this is just FYI. And I do have some information for the rest of you gentlemen. First of all, I want to say good morning, and it's a pleasure standing before you. I got the request to explain the match that we're requesting for. I can't see the word. The match that we request from you in the amount of $6,000. I do have these, and I will pass them out later. But so we're called Valley Area Agency on Aging. There are 16 area agencies on aging in Michigan. One covers what we call a region. Valley Area Agency on Aging covers Genesee, Lapeer, and Shiawassee counties. There's a AAA that covers every County in Michigan. The reason why we ask for the match, we divide our state and funding formula up based on population. And so right now, Lapeer gets approximately 14% of all of our state and federal funds for the Older Americans Act. All of the area agencies on aging come into fruition because under the Older Michiganians Act, and we get funding under the Older Americans Act. And so for fiscal year 2023, Lapeer, and we have focal points. We like for services to be done by the people who live in the community. And so Lapeer County Health Department, their senior services department, usually are the ones that apply for the RFPs, the request for proposals, and they're usually the ones that get the grants. And then they disseminate the funding and the services for the residents and seniors in Lapeer County. So we do keep local money in the community. So in 2023, fiscal year 2023, which started October 1st, we are slated to give Lapeer County over $700,000. Actually, $708,047 to serve different programs such as the care management program. You know, you can't get a service without first being seen by a nurse and a social worker to be assessed to see if you actually qualify, if you're sick enough to get the services. So you have to have the care management program. We give approximately over $60,000 to the congregate meal program, almost $200,000 to the home delivered meal program. For your respite, that's giving the caregiver a break, we give almost $70,000. And for in-home services, which includes a bath, personal care, homemaking, doing laundry, running errands, things of that nature, we give over $180,000. So, and that's just a few, and I'll leave this for you so that you can review it. And so the reason why, and in 2022, we served 935 seniors in Lapeer County, and we provided over 11,000 units of service. A unit could be anywhere from an hour or a visit or a meal. It depends on the service. And so the reason why we ask for the match for each county, we ask for a match from Genesee, Lapeer, and Shiawassee counties. The match for Lapeer County is $6,000. The federal government requests that all area agencies on aging give a match for service. And so we ask for that match from the counties that we serve. And so that's where the $6,000 comes in. Genesee County, I think, has to pay $10,000. And I believe Shiawassee County is $6,000 as well. Are there any questions for me? Hopefully I was able to explain why we do the match, and I know that was a question.
Commissioner Howell?
Just a pragmatic, and thank you for your presentation, it's very
Welcome,
helpful.
sir.
I had asked the question because I was not familiar with the intricacies of the AAA, and so I appreciate you coming. The numbers seem way out of proportion. We're getting 708,000, we're paying 6,000. How do we arrive, what's a small amount of money?
Well, we try to do it based on, we're not trying to bankrupt the counties.
Right.
And we tried to do a fair distribution, the board of directors, several years ago. It used to be, Lapeer and Shiawassee used to be 10, and Genesee County, I think, was 15. Once upon a time, there was 2 commissioners from each county on the board, but our board was extremely big. And so the bylaws were redone, so it's one commissioner from each county, and then we have 2 senior representatives from each county, which I hate to say that Bonnie Cavalunas, who was our senior representative representing Lapeer County, decided, due to personal reasons and health reasons, that she couldn't serve anymore. So we are looking for some senior representatives for both Lapeer and for our board of directors and our advisory council. So if you know of anyone who's 60 years of age or older, they can't be in an office at all. But we are more than happy to bring them on board and have them advocate for Lapeer County.
I have somebody to fill that position. If you're interested, are you gonna be around after we're done here? Because I know you mentioned you wanted to speak with me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because we have a properties meeting after that, so we do have a little bit of time, I think, it's in for properties meeting, 20 minutes or so.
It's personnel.
Yeah, personnel and property.
Yes.
So,
I can give you 15
the
minutes.
first
to
board
get you
meeting on the
away.
27th, I just want to, we'll talk about this later. My brother-in-law passed away, he's a veteran, it's at the memorials at the Holly National Cemetery on Friday, the 27th. I'm not gonna be able to make it, so I spoke with my colleague over here, Commissioner Hamilton, and he's going to attend that meeting. And because of the overwhelming meetings that were, and committees that were assigned to, we were talking about maybe alternating back and forth.
I'll have to check the bylaws about
I
that.
wanted to ask you about that, so
I'll
just
check
give you
the
a heads up
bylaws.
if you can look into that before we meet after this is over.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you so much, appreciate it, Mrs. Hopper.
Thank you. And here's just a little bit of the information. I don't have enough copies for everyone, but yeah.
Yes? Thank you.
And this is the breakdown.
Okay, he's on his account, okay. Yes. Thank you so much.
And I also have some cards if you're interested in giving me a call. Commissioner Leesley, you will hear from Mary Hill, who's the administrative assistant. She's the one that helps keep us all going smoothly. So I'll have her review the bylaws and we'll get back with you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you again. Okay, next item on the agenda, we have Amy Sell here to give us an update on our administration recruitment position. Amy, thank you for coming this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be able to serve the county. A few documents for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning again. So my goal for today is to provide an overview of the process that we'll be going through. I've also taken the liberty of going ahead and preparing a draft job posting as well as the assessment plan. I apologize for not getting this to you earlier so you could review it, but we were gathering some information from your input even this week. But I'll step back and provide a little bit more of an overview of the process and next steps, and then we can have a discussion, on next steps and timeline. So what I've provided to you is really just a draft. No pressure to approve it right now, but but we want to move forward, we have that option. So our process is to gather input from the community, from you all about qualities that you're seeking in the next chief executive of the county that's going to serve the county residents. Our process is then to put together what I call a talent rubric or a list of criteria. So that's on the third page in your packet. And so based on our prior experience with the county and from input that we've received, having a focus on finding qualified applicants that have deep expertise in finance and accounting, human resources, have outstanding communication skills, excellent leadership style that would fit in with the county, have certain personality aspects and behaviors that would be a good fit, have excellent and outstanding and unquestionable integrity, have a strong relationship orientation so that they're able to quickly build effective relationships, because the dynamics in a county are unique. There's lots of elected officials as well as department leaders and other staff members, and then obviously the community and residents and other stakeholders like the area agency on aging, and as well as project management skills. On occasion, there'll be new capital camp projects or other initiatives that do require good leadership, the ability to plan and then execute on that plan to support the goals of the county. So after we identify these qualities, and we've tried to identify kind of a must-have list, as well as ideal qualifications based on the input that we've received, both again in this and the prior search, then we design an assessment plan so that when we go out and recruit and market the opportunity, we can then assess candidates and make sure that they're gonna be a fit. So to do that, we will design a marketing campaign. We have drafted a job posting, so that is the first 2 pages in this document here. We would market it on different job boards, including the Michigan Municipal League, Strategic Government Resources, and the International County and City Managers Association also have job boards that get the word out. And we have a list database of municipal professionals that's about 1,200 or 1,300 that we will email out to qualify to get the word out. In addition, we have LinkedIn recruiter licenses, so we can go in and target candidates that have the requisite skills. And then because of the reputation of the county, we are already getting applicants coming in and who are very interested in serving the residents. We will then go through and assess these candidates by doing a written survey, which also provides us a nice sample of the writing skills. The assessment questions I've listed in this packet on the 4th page. Then we would have them do a video interview where they're given questions and provided an opportunity to answer those questions. You know, they can redo the video for that question, you know, and we ask them questions that might require some thought, and we want them to provide a good, representation of their skills and experiences on that video. We will also do a phone interview to ask them things around, especially around their career history, why they've left positions, what's motivating them in the future. Those are things we want to hear in real time, you know, to get a good sense of some of the more difficult questions that we will ask them to make sure that, you know, we understand if there were any issues at past employers. We will also do reference checks of the candidates and a background check, and I would say a cyber review to see what else we can determine about their background. Many candidates that will apply will have been in public positions, so gathering feedback about them is usually available on the internet versus private employers where sometimes that information isn't as public. We will then summarize this information and share it with you. So we will identify the top candidates that we feel best meet the criteria that we're setting out. Usually that's around, 5 to 7 candidates. And then we will provide that information to you. I did take the liberty of drafting a timeline. Again, this is all subject to change, but we would generally provide that information to you and give you at least a week to review it. It'll be in an electronic format so that you can actually click on and watch the videos and then read the information that we've gathered as well, so that you'll have a lot of information to consider when making this very important decision about who's going to play the key role for the county. Then I'll come back and help facilitate a meeting that can be done in closed session because many of these candidates will request confidentiality, which is afforded to them under the Open Meetings Act in Michigan. You can review a candidate's application to determine if they're going to move forward. Once you decide to move them forward, everything else in the process is open. So then we would schedule interviews. Again, I've taken the liberty of drafting an interview date. Once we determine the final interview date, this is something that we share with high potential candidates so they can kind of mark it into their calendar so that they're available. And usually it's about a week or so after the selection is made. So if we make a selection at a Thursday meeting, that following 8 days later on a Friday often works out well, especially if people are traveling to come in. They can then stay the Saturday and take a look around the community. At the following board meeting, there'll be a decision or a discussion in open session about next steps. which are to, sometimes it's to bring back candidates for additional interviews to learn more about them. Sometimes it's, we don't have our candidate in this pool, let's go back to the drawing board. Or it could be to move forward into negotiations with one of the candidates. So that's kind of the process about how it works, and I'm happy to take questions. If you like, I can, I just gave this document to you, so I can come back at a later time to get approval to move forward. Or if you feel comfortable, this is very similar to the search that we did before. I've made a few changes to the job posting document, but so again, we can launch something similar, or I can come back and provide, again, more time to make some more edits to it, or take any changes now. Again, I know I've given you a lot of information very quickly, and I don't wanna rush anybody, but we're ready to launch the search today if you would like. So, with that, I'd have, and then another key thing is the salary range. So getting a, budget or a range that you all are comfortable with is extremely helpful at the beginning of the search, so that I don't bring in candidates that have salary expectations above the budget. Right now, in the last 2 or 3 years, there have been very significant increases in some of the similar roles around. So, and then again, everybody's experiences a range of candidate expectations. But if I was to provide a guess about what I think a range would be, where people would be, it would be anywhere from 120 to 180,000. So again, understanding what the budget is for the county will be very helpful, so that I find candidates that will meet that. It would be subject to negotiation, of course, but having a range and understanding will be very helpful for me, so that I effectively bring candidates back that would be a good fit in that area too. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
So are you looking for this range now, and are you looking for approval to do this job posting now?
I'm happy to move forward with a job posting. I do need a range. I'm not recommending this range, but I felt like you might ask me what I'm seeing in the market, so I wanted to provide that range, but I want to be very respectful to your budget.
So, Mr. Chairman, do you want to give her that information now, or?
We can discuss it. I thought that it was in the budget for 150.
153
Yeah.
is the high water mark. So the 120 to 153 would be appropriate, depending on somebody's skill set.
Thank you very much.
Do we need a motion to give her approval to go forward?
That's up to you.
It's committee of the whole, so we're going to full board next week for final approval.
We still need a motion.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Do you need me to write it down?
And that would be helpful. And that was for Hagedon and Hamilton?
Yep.
What is your motion exactly?
It is to approve the range from 120 to 153 and the timeline stated in this.
And the job
Description, yes.
So motion is for any more discussion on that?
You're gonna be able to.
Commissioner Howell?
I'm just curious on the range you're talking about. So we said we do 120 to 153 is our initial thought. Is there a tendency to come in to say, I want 153, or is that range really impractical?
So what I would suggest is I don't need to put the range in the job posting. Some of the job boards that we use do require a range. And there's a lot that's going on with salary transparency, so in some cases, I will need to provide that range, but I can be silent on it in some areas so that it helps the ability of the county to negotiate. But I will make sure, again, if somebody's outside of that range, I have a conversation with them to make sure that they're in that range.
Right, 'cause I want it crystal clear that it's all gonna be dependent on the qualifications of that candidate. There's not a
Oh, yes, and they understand that it's subject to negotiation, and oftentimes people will provide their target expectations, but, and I never make a commitment that they're going to get that range, but if they're way outside of it, sometimes I will have a conversation to say, okay, the range is this, are you comfortable within that? Because if you're not, I don't wanna waste their time or your time moving forward with something. Is there another question?
one really minor one.
Yeah, Commissioner.
I was noticing on the Michigan Association of Counties site that they have a list, I think there were 4 at the time I glanced at it, of somewhat similar positions around the state. I assume that's part of what you do is get us on that list.
Yes. Yeah, there's quite a few other job boards that we're getting into.
That range that you came up with, the 120 to 180, is that a average range, or is that is like Lapeer County can be compared to Oakland County, or? Well, Oakland County is still different, but,
It's based on candidate feedback for similar positions that we've experienced. So it's very anecdotal.
Right.
But I'm just trying to give people a sense of what some of the expectations are gonna be that are out there. But I feel like, yeah, I mean, when you should be able to get many fine candidates in your budget.
So you haven't started seeking candidates yet? Have you gotten any candidates?
We have not actively posted yet. We wanted to get your approval, but we have been getting candidates that have been coming in through the county
Okay.
already.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, we're gonna make a vote on, you have the wording on that?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, Administration Finance Department, we have a request to pay separate invoice to Schiffman Fournier for labor-related services. Do we have a motion to pay that?
No, move that.
Support? Any discussion?
Zender and Howell.
Thank you.
Keep looking for Lynette over there, but she's over there. Any any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, motion carries. Okay. Next up, we have the prosecutor's office is here to give some information.
Good morning.
Morning.
Projector here. While we're waiting for that, I would just, Commissioner Nysley, you had indicated an interest to do the tour of the jail. I strongly recommend the voluntary tour with Lieutenant Beebe versus the involuntary tour.
There is a difference in quality of service.
It's a totally different experience.
All in.
Might be better with the involuntary.
My apologies. I had this queued up and ready too early, obviously. Power off. Anybody have any other good jokes? This is just take a minute to warm up. So I had sent out with the request for this, what I'm asking the board to consider this morning. I sent out some information. I have some more information that I prepared on the presentation I'm gonna give here. And it's only 37 slides of PowerPoint. I'm just kidding, it's only about 7. It's pretty short. But I think some of the information I want to convey, I wanted to convey it so that the public could see some of this information too. And I apologize, we just don't have a very good setup here for the public to see that information. But the information, there's two really issues that we're talking about. Before I dive into it, I just want to comment that this has been, since most of you are new, this has been almost a year-long process for me. We started talking about the law enforcement millage, the sheriff and I did, almost a year ago. In 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be a year that we started doing this. That involved, getting the authorization from this board to approve the language of the law enforcement millage, to get it onto the ballot. And then I know most of you, I saw you on the campaign trails this summer. You've seen the presentation on the law enforcement millage at least once or twice. Some of you maybe more than that. So what it boils down to, what I'm asking us to consider this morning is implementing. How do we implement what the voters approved in the law enforcement millage? Must have bad batteries in this thing because it's just not moving very quickly. Come on. There we go. Implementing what the voters said yes to. So there's some issues with the new wage scale that came out for the prosecutor's office, and I want to walk you through some of those issues and explain why this is of critical importance in my eyes. The millage was approved pretty strongly. It's about a 60-40% approval rate back at the primary in August. When I presented the millage and the sheriff presented it, different townships, municipalities during the course of the summer to inform the public as to what we were talking about with the issues, the problems that we were trying to fix with the law enforcement millage. I specifically said and compared my office to make us competitive with neighboring counties, Genesee, Oakland, Macomb, St. Clair, Livingston. I also included Wayne County. And I actually, in preparation for this, I went back and watched it on rumble.com just to make sure I said that. So if you want to fact check me, I know most of you were at that Tea Party meeting and heard my presentation on this. That's what I said in every single township, in every single municipality across the county. I said, make us competitive, because if I can't compete, it's the reality of where Lapeer County is situated. We have borders with most of those counties I compared to. Now, in the comparison, when I get into the data a little bit later, I eliminated Wayne County. I don't want to be compared to Wayne County at all. There's so many problems with Wayne and so many issues that they have to deal with. It's really not even a close comparison. But making us competitive with neighboring counties. The MGT wage study comes back, and it doesn't make us competitive with those counties. In fact, the comparisons, the email I included in the RFA, demonstrates that data was specifically excluded from comparison. That's kind of where my issue lies. It was called a study. I don't believe it's a study because it doesn't include qualitative data. Anybody can do a survey. What does Grand Traverse County pay? What does Isabella County, Midland, Clinton? Go right down the list and compare them all. In fact, I offered that information to MGT because I have it all. The Prosecuting Attorneys Association publishes, we participate in a voluntary survey every single year where we disclose to the Prosecutors Association what our pay scales are for all of our positions, and not just prosecutors. It includes legal assistants, it includes victims' rights, it includes office managers, it includes investigators, positions that I don't even have. So when the study comes out, it compares the list of counties. I don't know how familiar you are with the study, and I don't want to get into too many of the weeds involving that, but I wanted to paint a clear picture as to what the issue is that we're talking about. But the problem with the study, in my opinion, was that it didn't provide any qualitative information. It didn't explain what the vacancy rates were. It didn't explain what the time to fill those positions were. How long were they posted for? What is the turnover rate? How long have some of the positions been there? Because that's a big deal. If somebody's been in an office for 15, 20 years and they're close to retirement, the likelihood of them leaving is probably pretty slim. So these are the type of qualitative information that I don't think was included. And this is probably the biggest comparison I can draw is this slide. Now, most of you have business backgrounds. Some of you own businesses, operate businesses. When you post for employees, how many of you are competing for employees in Grand Traverse County, Allegan County, Van Buren County, Cass County, St. Joseph County, Berry County, Clinton, Isabella, Midland, and Shiawassee? So that's what the wage study compared my office to. Getting to the second part of this, there's two issues. Remember, I said we have the wage study and we have the millage. The counties highlighted in yellow are in western, central, and northern Michigan. The counties highlighted in blue are the counties that I specifically referred to in the law enforcement presentations. We don't compete. I don't compete for prosecutors in Cass County. I know the prosecuting attorney in Cass County. His name is Victor Fitz. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for years. He has the exact same issues that I'm trying to fix. I know the prosecutor in Clinton County. He has the exact same issues that I'm trying to fix. That was pay scales for prosecutors is underfunded. So when we do a study and we compare ourselves to the other counties that are experiencing the same problem we are, how are we really fixing it? And I was just rejected by administration and the former board on this issue because they didn't want to hear it. They just wanted to hear that the wage study was implemented and that's all good. And I don't believe that was the final step. I believe there's more to the conversation to this because I emailed all of you an article that was just sent to me yesterday talking about a Wisconsin elected prosecuting attorney that was resigning from his office because he couldn't get prosecutors to come work for him. They wouldn't fund the positions. And he was going to work for another county. This isn't just a Michigan problem. It's not just a Lapeer problem. This is a nationwide problem. The whole defund law enforcement thing has gained more traction than I really can comprehend because it doesn't make any sense to me. So when I started the conversation about the law enforcement millage, these are all the problems that I had already seen play out for years. When I moved the law enforcement millage forward, that was intended to fix these issues, not make us inherit the same problem that everyone else has with underfunded positions. So the pay scale as it's adopted is flawed in my opinion, and I'll explain why. This highlights APA 1, Assistant Prosecuting Attorney 1, entry-level type position. These are people that I generally consider to have limited or no experience in prosecution, recent graduates from law school, etc. So we have those classified as a 23 right now under the current scale. Assistant Prosecuting Attorney 2 position, the next level up. These are people that can handle felony trials, have experience in handling felony trials. APA 3 is a prosecutor that I can give anything to. We can assign a homicide case to this person. We can assign neglect and abuse cases to this person. And they have the experience and skill set to handle those proficiently. Now, we also know wage scale, and I know this is new information for most of you, that any starting wage for an attorney with $150,000 in student loan debt, likely, anything less than $80,000, I can tell you in my experience in the 2 years I've held office, there's no conversation and there's no applicants for anyone under that level. So right now that takes us all the way up to the step 2 category on the scale at 84. Okay, that's competitive. But what happens next? In 2 more years after that, they end up at 96,000, which I think is overcompensated for an assistant prosecutor 1 position. So by comparison, that also accelerates an entry-level position 86% of the way through this scale. 86% of the way just by hanging around for 5 years. What I'm trying to build is a comprehensive office, someone that builds people up, someone that we can draw talent to Lapeer County with. And by the way, I'm one of the only prosecutors that lives in the county right now in my office. My youngest prosecutor just moved here just this month, so he's new. But if we're going to recruit and retain talent, we have to have a scale that incentivizes that. And that's what I've submitted to you. The scale that I've submitted to you in my RFA is something that I believe incentivizes that scale. Now, let's skip to when I decide it's time to promote someone from an APA 1 to an APA 2. Where do you go from step 4 to the starting step for APA 2? It involves a $23,000 pay cut. How does that make a lick of sense? It doesn't make any sense. And the problem with the study is that they decided to take a one-size-fits-all approach. So if you dig into the study, you'll find these APA positions are aligned with other positions, with the mental health department, with magistrates or referees. They're not the same jobs at all. Even if you say an attorney's an attorney, no. A magistrate does an arraignment on a murder case in the same 10 minutes they do an arraignment on a retail fraud, third-degree simple misdemeanor. Same 10 minutes. Domestic relation referee, every single day hears cases and arguments about custody, parenting time, child support. That's it. When you consider the scope of all the crimes that my office is responsible for prosecuting individuals for, it's an entirely different task. And you can also ask, Magistrate Dillon used to be a prosecutor here. He's been a magistrate here for a long time. I guarantee he will tell you the two jobs are not the same. So if you go through the APA 2 scale, where APA 1 lets off or stops, the only viable next step, and I've highlighted those in yellow, is a third step on the APA 2 scale. And by the way, if I say congratulations, Assistant Prosecutor 1, I'm promoting you to Assistant Prosecutor 2, you get roughly a $700 pay raise. Congratulations, major award. Now the next step is considerable because it goes to 104, right? But that's it. So then if I say, APA 2, congratulations, you're done at 104, we're gonna start you over at 79. That's a $25,000 pay cut. How does that make any sense? I don't understand it. So then the county has a policy that you're not aware of. Nobody goes backwards on a promotion in pay. So then what's the point of the rest of the scale? It doesn't make any sense. So when I promote someone from APA 2 to APA 3, now we're talking about another $700 pay increase. Congratulations. You're at the top of the scale. And by the way, you only get one more step at 112. Almost half of this scale is just fluff. There's nothing in it. It doesn't mean anything. It has no value. Come on. Must be bad batteries. So I want to, Commissioner Zender will get this one, the dreaded pie, right? The conversations over budget in this room have evolved around a pie. And that's why I titled this one aptly, the dreaded pie, because the dreaded pie in this circumstance does not involve my request taking money from another department. It doesn't involve my request laying extra burden on the general fund. The budget for this office is this number right here, 1.6. And that incorporates some of the positions that I've asked for to be restored. That incorporates revenue from my office by way of state of Michigan work, which involves 4D and 4E work, neglect and abuse cases, and also the child support cases for families that are receiving state aid. So that's considered revenue, so that number is inclusive in here. Now the millage forecast, and I'm going to dive into this in a minute. So if you take my 2023 budget, which would include that general fund discussion, which includes revenue, and I'm only saying, hey, I plan to only capture 90% of the millage that would fall into my budget. Remember, it's 13% comes to the prosecutor's budget, the other 87 goes to the sheriff's department budget. Now, I do that for a reason. Number one, because some of the other work I've done behind the scenes is lobby all the DDAs, the downtown development authorities throughout our county, that can choose to capture that millage and reduce that top number, which the forecasted number is like 660,000. I'll show that on the next slide here. I'm happy to say that every single DDA in Lapeer County has agreed to waive capture of millage funds except one. Any guesses?
City of Lapeer.
Bingo. Not a surprise, but they're legally entitled to it, so be that as it may, even though they benefit more than any other municipality from the law enforcement millage with all the school resource officers that we have funded for those schools, that's a different conversation. That's not what I'm here to argue. So with everything that we've done so far, from the funding of general fund, and remember I worded the millage so that the budget for the sheriff's department, the budget for the prosecutor's office could not be reduced as a result of passing those. So what that does is it just sets that baseline number for budgets going forward. The law enforcement millage money comes in on top of that. So that may be why it seems like I'm having this conversation you guys may not be that familiar with, just from your this being a new experience in budgeting. This yellow slice of the pie, the dreaded pie, right? Remember we talked about slices of the pie? That represents a contingency balance of $288,000 in the budget of the prosecutor's office. And mind you, this is a conservative forecast. This is 90% capture. So, how will the request that I'm putting before the commissioners to adopt the pay scale that I've proposed impact the budget of the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney? So here we are. The general fund and revenue number is this top line right here. Law enforcement millage, 13% of that 1.45 mil. At 100% forecast, it generates $660,000. At 95%, it's $627,000. I use the most conservative figure at 90%, just under $595,000. So when you add that into this top number here, you get either one of these two, depending on your what capture percentage you utilize. And then we have the wage scales. So what I've requested and what NGT has adopted is right here. What I've requested is right here. And the differential is the third column. We're talking about $50-some thousand. Now, this is the budget line. Remember that contingency balance, and my numbers are different from the numbers that I've talked to finance about only because of that forecast figure, right? Is it 660? Is it 594? Is it something in between 612? However that number plays out, we'll know by the end of the year. But when you take that differential out of that contingency balance, we're still left with a contingency balance of $240,000, conservatively. And why does this matter so much? Why am I championing this cause I'm in like the 15th round of this discussion. I've already been through these hoops a number of times. I come to you one last time because I know that most of you were on the campaign trail and heard me make these representations to the public about what the comparisons were going to be and how we were going to spend the money. And now it comes time to spend the money. And my fear is that even if you grant me what I'm requesting, will it be enough? Remember, we've got this nationwide problem playing out with people not wanting to get into law enforcement, people not wanting to be prosecutors. This is something that I have to be ahead of the curve on to preserve our what we enjoy in Lapeer County as Lapeer County. So, in closing, I would just like to say, don't leave this to a chance. Don't leave this up to being penny wise, pound foolish, because the problem that the underlying theme here is that it's law enforcement millage money. It can't be spent on anything else. So we're just going to accumulate this money inside of the prosecutor's office budget and not let me go get the talent I need to get and pay the wage I need to pay to be competitive to get it out of fiscal responsibility. Because I don't think that's being very fiscally responsible when we tell the public we're going to do something with the money, and then I get throttled back on doing it. The funding issue isn't there. The funding is in place. So I'd also like to share, I mentioned Oakland County. They have 10 positions open right now. And their wages, I included in that graph that I shared with you, they pay a wage for an assistant prosecutor at $128, which is almost in check with what my salary is right now. An assistant, not a chief, not a deputy chief, not the other supervisory positions they have. They're an assistant. But I still think I can compete with if this request is granted. My fear is that if it's not, and we continue with the scale that we have, when I post those positions and somebody sees that the starting salary is $69,000, they're not even going to apply. So hopefully, you can see this from my perspective and the situation that it creates within my office. It's a nationwide problem. I included some other information in there for comparison, ergo, and it's different. And I want to make this point too, just because most people don't know this. Judicial salaries are set by the state. I know Commissioner Howell knows this. Judicial salaries are set by the state of Michigan. That's why there's no debate over it. The state of Michigan says this is what you pay judges, period. The state of Michigan does not say this is what you pay prosecutors. They leave it to the Board of Commissioners. And it's proving to be a problem because one of the major topics for discussion at the conference that I've been asking to attend in February is recruitment and retention of prosecutors. And by the way, it was the same discussion we had in August when I was at the conference. And I encouraged my counterparts to get a millage. Not all counties can do that. Wayne County, for example, I know you won't be surprised, and I hate to pick on Wayne County, but they are capped in their taxation ability. They don't have the option of going forward with the millage. They're climbing to the state for help. I'm saying, I don't want the state's help. The state is a mess, in my opinion. Think about that for a moment. We have a liberal governor, we have a liberal attorney general, we have a liberal legislature now in both houses, and we have the most liberal Supreme Court we've ever had. If you don't think that this is of critical importance today, I'm telling you the biggest fights are yet to come for the criminal justice system. And the reforms that these individuals intend on making, I know Commissioner Howell is nodding his head there, and I know he knows what I'm talking about. Some bills were killed in former sessions that were trying to defund victims' rights, trying to defund the courts. This is Lapeer's opportunity to say, no thank you, we have a game plan of our own. But I need to have this extra, the appropriate pay scales to affect that plan and protect our way of life here. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or even criticisms. I have thick skin.
Thank you, John. Do we want to discuss this now? You want to move it forward so we can discuss it?
I'll make a motion that we move it forward for discussion.
One second.
So motion is support. Any discussion? You know we're going to discuss.
Was that, Senator Mass?
Yes. So John, looking at all these numbers, so originally when you.
Do we need a vote to move it forward?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carried.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
So when according to, let's say the numbers, you took the position as, prosecutor, it was $108,000 a year. Then you got the $17,000 for being corporate counsel, so that was $125,000. Currently, with the $129,000 and the $17,000, it's $146,000. And then what you're asking for would be basically $170,000, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that would put you higher than Genesee, Macomb, St. Clair, Livingston, St. Joe's, I mean, all these other ones. I mean, the only one that's even close to that is Oakland. And when you mentioned, you sent the thing last night with the prosecutor that left Wisconsin, left that position. It looks like their average in Wisconsin for a prosecutor is like $77,000.
Like I said, it's a nationwide problem.
Right, and if you look at their scale on the national average, like 125 is like the high water mark on the national average.
And what I would tell you in response to that is that the corporate counsel contract is a separate issue. Because none of the other counties that I compared Lapeer County to in my request incorporate corporate counsel duties. They're separate. Piscola, for example, has $100,000 budgeted for their corporation counsel. So when you talk about the corporation counsel things, those are two separate issues because this is taking on responsibilities above and beyond my statutory duties that I was elected by people to do. And I'm happy to do that because it saves Lapeer County a pile of money. Pennies on the dollar. But I think two issues can't be confused. It would be tantamount saying, well, all of you have separate incomes, so we should reduce what you pay you as commissioners because you have this other income. It's not this, it's a different job, it's a different role than what you're here to do today. So that's, I think they're two issues.
Well, I mean, just in history, Lapeer County has never paid the prosecutor for corporate counsel in the past, correct?
Prior to 2017.
Because we had problems in our prosecutor's office.
Understood.
And so they went out for that job because they didn't trust the information they would be given was in their best interest.
I understand that, but I also have negotiated with that corporate counsel contract is an exclusive representation. I don't represent anyone else. I don't make money on the side hustle. I don't have a side gig where I'm doing work for someone else. I exclusively work for Lapeer County. And that's the difference.
Well, and like I say, I mean, I think in comparisons to even St. Clair, theirs is 139.5.
And that doesn't include corporation counsel.
I understand that, but I don't know, I guess if St. Clair does or doesn't, I mean, but in Genesee, Oakland County, there's 1 million people.
Mhm.
We have less than 90,000 or 90,000-ish. I gotta think Oakland County is a lot busier than.
And they also have over 100 assistant prosecutors there. We prosecute the same crimes. And judges in Oakland County make the same as judges in Lapeer County. That's why the state steps in and does that, because it may happen soon. I know that I think there was a bill proposed in the Senate for the state to set salaries for prosecutors, and it didn't pass. I'm not surprised. We're in a strong environment of defund law enforcement, so I don't expect that to prevail.
I mean, overall, I mean, what you're saying is you promised the people that the wages were gonna be, more fair and, we're gonna hire more people and that sort of thing. And I think we did that. I mean, overall, with law enforcement, with the prosecutor's office, and everybody got a fair raise. I mean, it's fairly substantial. Most people in this audience would love to make a third more than what they made.
If we're gonna get into those details about who got a third increase, it wasn't me.
Well, from 108 to 129.
I think it was 15.
16.
It's 21%
Okay.
from 108 to 129.
Okay, so 21%.
But you also have the situation now under the current scale, and I haven't mentioned it, that my chief assistant will make $1,000 more next year than I make for 2023. Because of his salary being so close in proximity to mine, and he also gets on-call pay. We had this situation at the sheriff's department where deputies were making more than command staff because they were working overtime. I think there should be some separation in that. And I also think there should be some kind of incentive for people to want to run for this office. Because I can tell you personally, and I don't want to get into me personally, it's not about me, it's about structuring our office. Last 2 years, I made less money than I've made in a long time. Like I said publicly in those meetings, I didn't take this job for the money. This is about building an office that is sustainable and can draw talent into the future. Not just about the personalities that are holding it now. That's also why I think it's important to keep the corporate counsel contract separate. Because I've said it before in this room, I intend to be in the prosecuting attorney for a long time. God may have a different plan for me. Don't know. But if the next person comes in and then this commission decides they don't want to use that person for corporation counsel, they're already in position to say, no, thanks, we're going to go in a different direction. And that's why I think it's important to keep those two separate.
The starting pay for your APA before the wage study, do you know what that number was?
$50,000.
So 50,000 for an entry-level assistant prosecutor before the wage study? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then now, what is it now? You said it was 69?
I think the number was
67.
67.
So that's a $17,000 increase,
Mhm.
which is, I don't have my calculator, but 34%.
But you also gotta temper that with what the prevailing rate is for attorneys out of law school. And I can tell you, and I said it before, I spent a year, recruiting directly from Wayne State, University of Detroit, and Michigan State University Law Schools. Said if I can't recruit prosecutors, I'll go find one, I'll make one. I couldn't get one applicant. Not one.
With the old wage.
It didn't matter. I just said, send me the applicants, I'll tell you what the wages are. Because if I got a really good one, I would come in front of you and say, help me hire this person.
The reason I asked the question is because the sheriff was in here last week, and I'm pretty sure we were down 4 or 5 deputies consistently. And they really didn't have any applicants. And then since they implemented the wage study wages, I don't know if anybody can enlighten me on what they went from 54 to 63. BB, do you know?
For what?
I know he said they had 4 applicants,
Starting
because they had
wages.
one gentleman who retired out of Illinois who wants to come up here, who was the chief of his own department.
Well, they went from not having any applicants to being down 4, and he said that they're getting a lot of applicants. So I'm saying that to say, once they implemented the wage study, they had success with it, and all of a sudden we went from having no applicants to having quite a bit of applicants. And then if you're going from 50,000 to 69,000 for the starting AP, I think that would draw a lot of attention. That's just my perspective.
I appreciate your perspective, but in terms of what graduates can make out of law school now, it's not competitive. That conversation starts around 80. I didn't just arbitrarily pick these numbers. I did my homework in advance. I considered the entire file of what other offices were paying throughout the state. And I do recognize this sets some precedent for Lapeer County. However, the citizens of the county voted yes for this law enforcement millage. And the key talking point was making the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney competitive with neighboring counties. Not counties on the other side of the state, not counties in northern Michigan. And by the way, more than 2/3 of the licensed attorneys in the state of Michigan live in southeast Michigan. So I have another filter of restriction that I have to deal with. We have to recognize in order to adopt a pay scale that's competitive.
So for me, and I hope you don't think that any of us are saying you and your staff are garbage, not at all. But your chief assistant would make $7,000 more than our elected sheriff. And I don't know if you remember this, we were out at Oregon Township together. And maybe my memory is bad. I don't ever remember hearing vote for this so I can get a $24,000 pay raise.
Well, and you're right, you didn't hear that. But if you don't pay the elected a amount that's above the subordinates, how is that a realistic structure?
I just, like I said, for me, I just have a problem with an assistant prosecutor making more than our elected sheriff. That, I look at that number and, as it stands now, I'm sure he's not at the entry level. I'm sure he's been there more than 6 months. So I doubt he's at those. He's probably at the 121, which puts him at $2,000 less than the sheriff right now.
But you also have someone with a law degree. You also have someone that has the licensure with the state of Michigan. You're not just talking about
And he just got almost a 29% raise.
And I'm not talking about, so there's a couple of points in there. I don't want to involve the sheriff in this. He can speak for his own department in that. Separate issues. You're talking about attorneys. We're talking about prosecutors. These are licensed individuals that have a doctoral degree. And the other point I would raise in that comment was that you're talking about a 29 or 30% increase for assistants, chiefs, but not electeds. And if you really scrutinize the wage study, you will find electeds got the smallest increase across the board.
Yeah, this board didn't get a pay raise at all. I have no problem with that.
I get that. The problem is that if we don't adopt a pay scale that incorporates the big picture for the entire office, like I said, I may not be here forever. I do the job because I love it. It's not about me. It's about building out an office. Right now, if I decide to run for judge in 2 years, it's almost a $40,000 increase from what you're paying the prosecutor's salary now. And I don't have to be general counsel to do that. In fact, I can't. So some of these moving parts here, and I know that there's this urge to compare it to the rest of the electeds. And that's why I say you're talking about two issues. The law enforcement millage funded the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney and the Sheriff's Department. I'm not speaking for the sheriff. If he has issues with the wage study, I think by and large he was happy with it. Because if you looked at his salary before that, it was pretty pathetic. You had the chief of police for the city of Lapeer making more money with a fraction of the responsibilities. Some of this stuff got out of whack for 40 years because nobody wanted to talk about it for 40 years.
So you're proposing these increases be paid for with millage money? That you
Absolutely,
collected?
yes.
Okay, so what happens in 6 years when, say there's bad economy, people don't want to pay that extra tax and that the millage doesn't get renewed? Now that puts this board in,
the general fund.
right, that puts us in a position of having to possibly make cuts to other things or even cut the prosecutor department back where it was to make the budget balance.
The Sheriff's Department and the Prosecutor's Office would necessarily have to be cut in that instance. What I found in my research with the law enforcement villages though, is that the first year they're up, they pass pretty strongly, and then it gets more and more support as time goes on. I had talked intimately with Kalamazoo County, Jeff Getting, who's the prosecutor there. They passed one in 1982, and it's passed overwhelmingly every year since then. So you're talking about 40 years. So yeah, there is the risk that this could not pass in 6 years, but nobody has a crystal ball. We can't look into the future. I can tell you, I hope to be here in 6 years, and I hope sheriffs, they're with me to go back out and tell all the public, here's all the things that we did with the money, and here's all the things that we're able to continue providing to Lapeer County service-wise as a result of this millage money, and we're asking you to approve it again. And that's also why Sheriff and I agreed to not make it a term longer than 6 years. Because we wanted the public to have a say. We could have made it a 12-year term. But I don't think that's right. Sheriff agrees.
Jim, I have a question. A couple observations for me, because I did go to a lot of those fundraisers and I was very supportive of the law enforcement millage. I remember one of the points that the sheriff made, which I thought was a great idea, is, we don't really know that we're going to spend all this money after the 6 years. And if there's money left over, then it'd be a lot easier to get a renewal going to the taxpayer instead of trying to procure another 1.45 mil increase, that we could maybe say it's just a mil. That might be more palatable to taxpayers. That's one point, but in reading the resolution that was from May 5th of 22, the 14722, the resolution that passes court says right here, whereas due to systematic nature of the criminal justice system, appropriate staffing levels at the Office of Prosecuting Attorney are necessary in supporting the investigative work performed by law enforcement in the successful prosecution of major crimes throughout Lapeer County. That's really the only reference in this resolution that mentions the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. Now, I know some representations, I'm trying to struggle to find out where actual numbers were like you mentioned the Tea Party. I was at that meeting. Where we're sharing actual numbers. I think that would be a death sentence for the millage if you go out saying, hey, we expect to get pay raises and we want a 30% increase for the prosecuting attorney's office, 30% increase for the sheriff. The majority of people that voted for this millage and that voted in the election didn't go to these meetings. There might have been 30 people at this meeting, 20 people at this one. So it's a very small representation of the core voters that actually voted on this millage. And probably most of them didn't even read this resolution. And the millage, nobody reads that language. They would have, we probably wouldn't have ended up with proposal 2 and 3. But in November. But that's my only observation. I mean, I just, and I would have been very cautious to having mentioned hard numbers to the voters because I think that would have been a death sentence. But I just think it's maybe kind of disingenuous in a way to say that this was, these numbers were cast out there and that the voters were made aware of it and they supported the millage because of that. And I support prosecuting attorney's office, don't get me wrong. I just, I think the MGT study that we spent $50,000 on, roughly thereabouts, outlined and maybe made some errors. Did you have an opportunity in the last board to even go over those MGT results and confer with them before they actually finalize those?
more rounds than I care to say.
So you
This
did have
is-
an opportunity to weigh in on that.
I did, and no one would ever recognize the millage is one issue and the wage study is another issue. And it's frustrating because you're right, I did not speak. It would have been bad for Sheriff and I to go say, here's the numbers of what we're gonna pay. We didn't know what they were gonna be because that's this commission's job is to decide what those are. All we can say is this is how much money it's gonna generate. And these are the problems that we intend to fix with that funding. And that's why I agree with you. I was at all those meetings. I spent my summer doing that. The vast majority of people never got into the nitty-gritty detail. But that's why Sheriff and I kept it to the talking points of solving general problems.
Right.
I'm down to a finer level now of talking about, help me fix this specific problem with this salary scale for this office.
I think that argument was conveyed very well to the public. That's why I supported it by a 60% margin, that we have staffing issues. I think it was pretty much weighed around the fact that road patrol and the sheriff didn't have any candidates to replace the positions that were vacant, let alone trying to recruit new candidates.
Right.
And, that's amongst the group of people that I spoke with about this, and we discussed it, was a staffing issue. And, which parlays and also into compensation too, because we couldn't be competitive when we're losing deputies to other neighboring counties because of the wages and benefits, but that got corrected in the wage study. We spent a great deal of money with MGT Consulting on coming up with that study, and now we just kind of want to throw part of that out the window, and what kind of can of worms does that open up for every other department in Lapeer County?
And I guarantee the former commission had the same sentiment. And the problem is that one size does not fit all. And that's what was adopted, is one size fits all. And that's what I'm saying. If I go out and advertise for assistant prosecutor one position and start at $67,000, I'm not gonna get any applicants.
If you even, now that the study's out, if this information got out, you haven't hired anybody or even advertised for anybody yet. I mean, where are you at with that?
Because I've had to get approval from this commission to have the positions restored.
Right.
And the pay scale solidified. So in knowing that I was going to be coming back here and asking for help to fix this pay scale issue, I didn't want to go out and advertise for people and say, well, I want to offer you the job, but it may change because I don't really think this is right. I think we need to fix it because scale needs to be tweaked. And I would only add that if you talk to other counties, it's not uncommon that they have separate scales for prosecutor's office, separate scales for the judicial offices, like magistrates and referees and things like that, because they're not the same job. But what they did in the study was they flopped my positions into this mix of everyone, and it doesn't make a lot of sense in my opinion. Because if you go from a APA 1 to an APA 2, how is that an incentive to have a $23,000 pay cut and say, well, let's just ignore the bottom half of that scale, we're not gonna use that.
But if our policy.
We're not getting a pay cut, John. We won't.
Exactly. But then why do we adopt the scale?
Because what if you hire an APA 2? The day he walks in, he should make as much as, somebody who's been here for 2 or 3 years?
An APA 2 should make more than an APA 1.
Okay.
And that's the problem. So if I hire an APA 2, they're gonna start at a lesser scale than an APA 1 that's been there for 3 years. And still, and the person I'm hiring has more experience in trials.
Wasn't the scales implemented to basically get us to where we need to be over time to not burden the taxpayers? It wasn't like all the electeds and everybody in the county is gonna get an increase every single year, right?
Right.
They implemented the scale to kind of slowly they moved up the wages. And now we've got a tiered scale for the next 5 years to get us where we really need to be. That's the point of the scale.
That's 4 years.
Right, so whether it's,
And along that same conversation, I could hire an APA 3 that would come in at $79,000 a year, and I'll have an APA 1 that's making 96. And it will take him 3 steps to catch up to that level and still be $700 short.
When you say steps, are we talking about longevity? That's my understanding of what those 1 through 4 is.
So
They're years, right?
They're longevity. They're not steps that, performance criteria based. These are steps in longevity.
When you hire in as an APA 1, you start at the opening step. And I believe the scale adopts a 6-month increase, a 1-year increase, year 2, 3, and 4.
But then policy is that no APA would ever step back and pay if they move to the next level.
Correct.
So it's really kind of irrelevant in a way to even discuss that. It's totally useless to look at the left side of that pay for that APA that's making that move to the second level. It's there for a reason, but he's really not taking a pay cut. So he might only be getting a $700 raise, but he's not taking a pay cut.
So let's say for argument's sake, I have an APA 1 now. That's gonna be step 3.
Can you bring the scale up? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So they're gonna be at $90,000. Oh, there it is. And this is a real life scenario. I have an APA 1 that's a step 3 that's gonna make $90,000. So if I go out and recruit and hire an APA 3, say, hey, and I need to hire an APA 3. My starting conversation with them is $79,000. Now, I would have to come down here and get permission to bring them in at a higher step to make them be compensated more appropriately for their skill set at 97 or 105. I'm telling you, I won't be able to get people from Macomb County or Oakland County that are prosecutors with experience, and that's an APA 3, to come here with that scale. This will not work because they're already making north of 105. And yet I gotta have this conversation with them about, well, come on in and work for us and I'll go before the commission and beg and plead and borrow to get you up to well, you're making 110 in Oakland, so I'm gonna bring you in at 112. And that's it. So it's not just about what the chief's compensation is, what the elected's compensation is. It's about raising this platform and making it competitive to recruit people to come here. We're in a time that there's not many people falling out of law school that are saying, hey, I want to go be a prosecutor. So part of the conversation is I have to go get someone else to get one. This scale doesn't make me competitive. AP 3 scale does not. That's probably in fact, if you eliminated these first 2 columns, the 0 and the 0.5, okay, we fixed it a little bit. It still doesn't get me where I need to go to hire this individual, and I need one.
But an APA 3, okay, that's working in Macomb or Genesee or wherever, they're gonna have several years there probably too, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so if they have 3 or 4 years of experience at Genesee as an APA 3, can't you just come to us and we'll do a lateral, so they get credit for the 3 years or 4 years that they have at?
Arguably, yes.
Okay.
I could do that. But I'm telling you, that person is making 112, 110 right now. This scale doesn't go far enough. And that's part of my criticism of the study, is because it didn't take into consideration these qualitative things that I'm talking about. How many applicants are they getting on those scales that they're publicizing and advertising for those positions? How long have the positions been open? How long was the previous candidate in that position before they vacated? What was the reason for their vacating that position? There's a lot of information and I get it. I understand the thinking here that, well, we're just gonna be overpaying people. I'm here to tell you we're not. We, at this number here, and I provided it in the tables that are attached to the RFA, you can check me. I'll happily send any of you the Prosecutors Association survey on compensation. This isn't enough. These 2 boxes are not enough to get a prosecutor with 10 to 12 years experience to come from another county. They're already making that number. And in Oakland, they're making well north of that. Macomb, they're making well north of that. Genesee, that's the bottom. An AP 3 in Genesee County is making 112 to 120 right now. And by the way, they lost 4 prosecutors last year. I'm telling you, you don't have to do this, and I'll still be here. But I'm just pleading with you, the law enforcement millage funds what I'm asking for. And you're talking about a paltry $50,000 to make my office compete with these larger counties that I'm gonna have to steal talent from.
Oakland County, what does our APA start out at? Is the sheet correct? 66.6 is the low?
That's the low.
So if we're offering 67, we're higher. And after a year, they get a $10,000 raise. Is that correct?
Well,
So we'd be $10,000 above. I don't know what Oakland does for their, I'm just using them as an example.
Sure.
After a year, if you start out at 66.6 with Oakland, after a year, how much is your raise there?
I can march every prosecutor in this room throughout the state, and they would all tell you the same thing. They're not getting candidates for $66,000 a year. They're struggling with, they're grappling, all these other counties are grappling with the same issue I thought I had just fixed with getting the law enforcement laws passed. All the other prosecutors' offices throughout the state are in the same boat. And that's the flaw with the study. It compares us to the same problem everybody else has. It doesn't put our best foot forward. When we've got the money, it's already been raised by the public said yes, we've got the money, it doesn't put our best foot forward to go out and recruit talent and take talent from other counties. And that's what I need.
I just want to, I mean, John's doing a great job presenting his case, but I just want to clarify for the board. Elected officials were compared to those counties, but APAs were not. They were compared statewide, industry-wide, government, and then government-wide. So they weren't just compared to the other counties for APAs, just the elected officials were compared to other counties.
So these numbers are actually probably a little better than
Yes.
they should be.
Yes, absolutely. We went with, we got the market midpoint, the market minimum, the market maximum, and most cases we come in a little bit higher than the market midpoint.
But it doesn't involve vacancy rates. It doesn't involve whether or not they're getting applicants at those scales. These are the kind of intangible problems. It's easy to look at the numbers and say, yeah, this were the comparisons, but all the other data is missing from that. We don't have the qualitative data for that. All we've done is compare our problem to everyone else's problem. And so did we fix it? And in most respects throughout the county, I think it was fixed. I think by and large, the wage study was appropriate. But I'm just telling you, it's broken as it applies to my office. It's a broken model. And if we're gonna endure the next couple of years with a liberal state, I'm telling you, the fights are just beginning. And I'm gonna need more help. And if I can't get them because I'm throttled back to this scale, when the millage money's sitting over there being unspent, by the way, it doesn't go back to general fund, you can't use it on anything else. What do we tell the public? I don't think we're putting our best foot forward with that argument. Whatever this board's decision is, I'll live with it, but I'm just here to plead one last time to say, this is a handicap.
Clarification, Genesee County APAs are unionized, is that correct?
Yes.
Are any other counties that are using GT
I
study?
don't believe so. The only one, and I don't think Wayne is, Wayne might be the only one I would hazard to guess might be unionized, but I don't think they are. Thank you. There's no other questions.
Any more
I've
questions?
taken up enough time, so.
I was just wondering, if this does not go through, is there an opportunity to revisit this ever, or is this one?
I don't know if I have the strength for that.
But
I think I'm done talking about this, I think.
again, the wage study was done. He can always bring somebody in if he has an APA 3 that has, years of seniority at a different place, he can still bring that person in and say, look, I want to hire this person and I want to give him credit for the 3 years that he's worked at wherever, and start him at a higher scale. You can always come to personnel and do that.
Not if the scale's capped at 112. And I'm trying to get a guy that reality is making 115 in a neighboring county.
Right. I totally agree with that. He's making 115, he's not gonna probably, unless it's a pretty hostile environment there. But it depends. I mean, travel time and everything else, and Oakland County in general pays more for everything.
If the money.
Well, yeah, they've got.
Their board gets over double what we do. Their county commissioners. their chief animal control officer, you look at it, look at the scale, I don't care if it's beginning or, you know, after 4 years or whatever, yeah, it's about a $28,000 a year difference compared to what we pay. You know, and I'm sure it's all sorts of other departments, okay? Oakland County has 1 million people paying taxes. Their wages are higher. Their cost of living is probably higher. So.
We have a law enforcement village to fund our initiatives and our requests. People said yes to that. It doesn't apply across the county, it applies to the sheriff's department and the prosecutor's office, but that part of that funding, I agree wholeheartedly, and I don't aspire to be Oakland County, but because they're my neighbor, and Macomb is too, and St. Clair and Genesee, that's the reality of who I have to compete with. And the voters said yes, the voters funded this initiative. So the money is there in our budget.
I understand that, John, but they also, you know, when somebody's getting what was the percentage?
For which position?
Well, if we went from the
APA.
the 129 to the whatever 150 something. 153. You know, what is that percentage difference? I mean, you know, let's say
13.5%.
your position got a pretty substantial raise, and I think is our constituents, I mean, if we give somebody a, 40% raise or 30% raise, you know, they're not gonna be real happy with us. I don't think that's what they planned that this was gonna be funded for. We hired a firm to do this. I know you disagree with it, but we haven't even tried it yet either.
I think it would be wise to give it time. I mean, if you're going, whatever the issue is, if the main issue is APA ones, let's just use that as an example. You're going from offering 50,000 a year last year to 67. That's a pretty substantial increase. And the sheriff's department has seen great success. I don't think their deputies got that much of a bump to draw talent. Now he's got people applying, and I'm just saying that it would be wise to give it some time and try it. I don't want to say that you're wrong.
I understand. I understand your position. I also think it's fiscally irresponsible to accumulate contingency balances in a budget when voters approve money to be spent for a specific purpose. We're saying, well, we're not going to do all that because we don't want to raise the flag too high. But that's this board's prerogative. That's my position. I won't be back. I won't discuss this issue again. I've fought hard and long for a year for this. And if this is the last talking point, I'm fine with that.
One last question. If you have a surplus, the village is going to generate around $600,000 for your office a year, based on the positions you're going to add, and then anything else that's been added. How much of that are you going to use? Or do you
right now,
propose
as it stands today, there's a $280,000 balance. The positions have already been funded. Restoring the positions that were laid off are already funded. That's my frustration with this, is that we're going to tax people, but we're not really going to fix the core of the problem. Just to say we're not going to raise the flag too high. I mean, there's a strong incentive for others to move in other directions and take jobs in other counties that are paying more. We are a small county, I understand that, but the voters gave us the money to fix this issue. And if we're just going to sit there and let that money accumulate in an account, by the way, it can't go back to general fund. It's law enforcement, it's millage money, it has to be spent on that purpose. I think we're kind of doing a disservice to taxpayers.
After 6 years, John, if there's money in the contingency and it comes up for renewal, that money will be there to offset the 1.45 and easier sell to the voters. And like Tom said, or Truman said, that, if we fall into bad economic times, which on the course this country's headed, I really believe we are, we're going to be at a crossroad at that time, and we might not get a renewal, and if we do, it'd be a lot more palatable to voters to say, hey, they were very fiscally responsible, They had a contingency. They didn't spend all the money. They really only need the equivalent of 1 mil as opposed to 1.45. So let's ask for 1 mil, and the voters might be more favorable to do that. I mean, it's it's always easy to ask for money, to get the voters to vote for it. We don't know what the economy's going to be like in 6 years, or if we even have a country anymore.
Well, just like this summer when gas was $4 and $5 a gallon, it wasn't a popular time to ask for the millage to begin with.
Right.
Not at all. Interest rates rising, home prices escalating. There's a lot of things working against us. We had considered that may not be timing this year, in 2022 to do that.
Usually reaction.
Future's promise to no one.
Bad economic times kind of trails a little bit, and I think there was still a lot of money flowing in people's pockets here up until even to this day, that the drunken spending stupor is still, the psychological aspects of that are still out there. People are spending money, and I can't believe people are building houses today, new houses, the cost of construction, materials, supply chain issues and all that too. But, I think the reality is going to set in eventually, and when it does, it's going to get hard. But that's just my opinion, and I thank you very much for coming. You made a great presentation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mast.
Just for argument's sake, on the other side of that coin, if you have, in 6 years, you have all this unspent money in this millage, and we still have a huge crime problem, and the voter's gonna say, we put the money out there and crime's still here, so there's two sides of this coin. It's just, I don't know.
Most of you don't know this. I had a meeting with the judges in December. December. The purpose of that meeting was to prioritize cases that were behind on in jury trials. I just still have a 2015 case to try. I have 2019 cases, a pile of them to try. These are cases that are 4 years old. So it just underscores the need to have competent prosecutors. I've got the judges on board that are saying, hey, we'll prioritize these old cases, we'll get them tried, we'll spin them off and assign them to other judges to have those jury trials. If I don't have the prosecutors to do it, it doesn't really matter. Prosecutor's the one running the trial. So just to that point about, it's not just about crime and controlling crime. We can arrest all the people we need to. We can charge them with crimes all that we need to. But if we have the prosecutors at the end of the day to try the cases in the courtroom, we're selling ourselves short. We're still gonna have that problem in 4 years. If I don't fix this today, I guarantee in 3 more years, I'll still be talking about cases that are 4 years old. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So we move this forward for discussion purposes. Wasn't really a motion to,
Move forward and support, so.
For discussion, I needed clarification on that. It wasn't the proposed motion, and am I correct?
yeah, it wasn't, what was in
It
the
was a
RFA?
brand new motion just to move it forward for discussion. Correct?
Just for discussion.
Yep.
Do we need to vote on
You voted
bringing it
on
forward
that
for discussion?
motion, but there is his proposed motion in the packet that you might want to dispose of in some way.
Two RFAs.
He's requesting that you amend the budget and implement the pay scale. So that is you haven't taken any action on that, so it's up to you of what to do with that at this point.
And we don't
So
have
we
to
got-
take action on that. Correct, we don't have to, we can just move on to public comment.
We're not taking any action on these requests, A and B?
So the
Okay.
wants to approve it. There's a motion and support. That we can vote on it. Or if nobody does anything, it dies, we fine, support.
Okay, so do we have a motion for A and B, A or B? No motion? Support? Fails. Okay, next order of business is public time. Second public time, is there anybody from the public who would like to comment today?
Greetings to the new commission. You all look well. I'm glad each one of you are there, and it sounded like a very good discussion with this amendment that was proposed. I'm just here, I'm John Stahl, I'm from Arcadia Township, and one of you out there. And I just want to bring to our attention, we're talking about value of life. Roe versus Wade was passed January 22nd by the Supreme Court in 1973. This Sunday marks the 50th anniversary for that. And they reversed that decision, but the value of life in some states and where we could be heading for it in the value of life because of Proposal 3, I think the commission really needs to consider this because it's talking about children, killing babies, killing children. And some states dove into the abortion, and our governor made a statement that she wants to make this an abortion capital or whatever. Welcome everybody here, just like, what's his name, did in New York. And so if we value life, because the preamble, I preach it every time I get up here. It says that the reason we go forth to ordain this Constitution is to preserve the blessings of freedom. Life is freedom. To ourselves and our posterity. Posterity is unborn. So I just want to bring that to the attention of the commission that this marks the 50th year and that you would consider parental rights and rights of the child, the unborn child, in your next 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saul. Anyone else from the public who'd like to comment during the second public time?
Jay Beckwith, Marathon Township. I just want to start with saying thank you, each of you, for all you do, putting your time in and asking the questions and doing everything you do. I don't know the half of it behind the scenes. And I want to thank John Miller for his presentation this morning. He did a great job. I'm thankful for him. I'm thankful for his passion that he has for his job. It's important. It's a very important position. But I do want to make note, the concerns that we have here in our community for an increase in crime. John's very passionate about his job, and he has a lot on his plate, but that's because we have issues with crime. And so I just kind of want to look at, both sides of the picture here. And the importance of our planning commission boards that my constituent Carol Wynn was talking about earlier this morning. I'm very thankful that the city planning commission board denied that business coming here into Lapeer, because there are articles and research that have been done on a correlation between having a community having a sexually oriented business and crime rates. And so, we have to be looking at our community on a whole. So I'm thankful that our city planning commission board, saw that. And I'm very thankful for Mr. Tim Denny, the lawyer that was present at that meeting. We need to continue as a community and individuals getting involved and letting our voices be heard, doing our research and listening to one another, because these issues, they're really together. I mean, we're gonna see crime rates increase if we're not cautious about allowing special land uses like what was presented last week. So thank you all for being involved and being aware and listening to all of the issues and seeing how, we can't just be narrow-minded. We can't just, look at one issue. We have to look at how one impacts the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Beckwith. Anyone else from the public who'd like to comment today?
Alan Pierce, Hadley Township. My second time up today because of what happened with the prosecutor. Just want to inform the board that a like millage is sitting apparently in a bank somewhere. 87.4% of that millage money in the very first year that it passed. We have consistently, over the past 12 months, been understaffed in order to help seniors stay at home and have somebody come in helping them stay at home. Those positions have been empty because of the same reasons that the prosecutor was saying. Nationwide, people are not being drawn to those jobs to go into the homes to help. So we are underserving. I think the last number of the last meeting that was actually held for the senior board was it was reduced to like 77 people on the waiting list for these services. But the money's still going into that purse from the millage for this entire year. So there's an abundance of money there that's not going to be spent at the end of the year. And we're starting on year 2 of that millage. And that increases to 93% of taxpayer money going for paying people to do the services. So are we going to, I mean, you know, this is a problem. That's not only this millage, the senior millage, or the law enforcement prosecutor millage, if there's going to be money left in them. But the bottom line is, I have seen in the past 12 months, there's roughly 80 people, in some months 80 plus seniors in this county that have been underserved because we don't have the staff. We've got the money to pay them, but we don't have the staff that's willing to take that money. Because, you know, okay, this is another area that I am a taxpayer. I'm paying for all these millages. If that money's not being used for its intended purpose and it's being pooled somewhere, where is it being pooled and what's it being used for? Other than somebody's bank account. I don't know. These are questions that I want to know. I'd like to know.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Anyone else from the public who'd like to comment during the second public time?
Mark Lynn, Marathon Township. I think you guys made the right decision. I support it 100%. My daughter lives in a ring suburb in Oakland County. $250,000 million house there is not what you get over here. Her taxes are probably double what everything is here. That's the biggest expense of somebody starting out, starting a career. I think you made the right decision. See where you're at in a year. You can revisit anything at any time. And that's for what they did today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who'd like to comment during the second public time? Okay, we'll close the second public time. Anyone else have any comments?
Support.
The motion and support. Commissioner Howell?
I have a commissioner comment, if I could indulge for a second, because I got some good news. In that, Mr. Hamilton particularly is aware of this because of his child going to Oxford schools. But when the tragedy happened, I was proactive in Lansing, and we were able to establish a new program for additional money for school resource officers. We got $25 million permanently every year available on a matching grant basis. They just announced, and of course, the sheriff was here to give us the good news about the money that will come out of the new law enforcement village to go for school resource officers and other school safety activities. So this is money above and beyond coming in. They just announced this last week those grant awards. About a little less than a third of the districts in the state qualifying. Now Oxford is unique. They got some direct appropriations because of what happened there. But in our county, the Lapeer ISD was granted $100,000. North Branch Schools received a chunk of money. Brown City and Lakeville, which are partial in Lapeer County, all received funds. So our students are going to be benefiting from that money that's going to be coming directly to our local schools, whether it's for resource officers or improved security doors or whatever they're going to use to make our kids safer. So that just came out this week, and it's a bit of good news.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Anyone else? So we have a motion to adjourn. We have support.
Yep, Hamilton supported.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Meeting adjourned.
Why are you recording all that scenery?